Hello everybody, I'm Lorenzo Marchessi and I'm here right at the beginning of this video we're about to watch to remind you to subscribe to my channel. It's very helpful if you do, and also please tell your friends, your family members, and share it if you can. Love to hear your comments and feedback, but just want to make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Geek Authority show. I'm your host Lorenzo Marchessi, and this is the show where I get to talk to all kinds of fabulously talented people from all walks of the entertainment industry, cosplay, musicians, actors, writers, directors, producers, collectors, all kinds of fun and wonderful things. This gentleman that I have today, I've known for a while. He's a dear friend of mine. Mainly know him through this little tiny phenomenon called Star Trek. I get to see him at conventions, and we get to share stories of our various adventures. He himself is in charge of various Star Trek groups, and combining them, getting together, making them grow, and so on and so forth. My special guest today is Mr. Nathan Adams. Thank you so much, Nathan. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad the site-to-site transporter worked. It's nice to be here with you.
Wow. Is it difficult to program?
No, what happened is the Starship is not always in geosynchronous orbit, so I have no idea where I'm going to wind up. But this time it went perfect.
So do you know where you are now?
Yes, I am. I'm on my feet.
Okay. Anyway, so Nathan, let's start a little bit about you. Obviously, you're a Star Trek fan. You're wearing a Star Trek shirt. I got in the spirit as well. I got my hat, my IDIC, and my Mr. Spock shirt. So have you always been a Star Trek fan? And exactly when did it catch your eye?
1966, when Star Trek first came on, my father was watching it. And I remember sitting down in his lap. And when Star Trek came on, and Captain Kirk talked to the computer and it answered him back, I was like, oh, I want to do things like that. I want to be in that world. And I became a fan. I remember him going out and buying a color TV set when Star Trek was then broadcast in living color on NBC. And that was one of the things that my father, proud as a peacock.
With the peacock.
And I remember watching it with him, and I became a fan from that point on. I must have watched almost every episode until it was canceled.
Okay, and what age were you, if you don't mind me asking?
I must have been about five or six.
See,
yeah, and it bit my sci-fi. I get bit with the sci-fi bug from that point on. I started to devour anything sci-fi related in comics, books, anything I get my hands on.
Yeah, for me, I think I caught it. I didn't catch it when it originally aired. I think I was 5 years old in 1970, and then I caught it in reruns. And when you saw it, it was once a week, right? Airing.
Yes, it was.
When I saw it, it was every night, in reruns on our WGN Channel 9 in Chicago. I got to see it. And what's funny is that's how I learned the dialogue, the scenes, the music.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, because it's always on. It's always on. And reruns is what brought it back to life, actually. And
yes, it did.
That little tiny thing called Star Wars gave Paramount a boost to say, you know what, we got one of those, and bring it back to life in feature films. In 1978 is when they shot. 79 was released. So, back to you. So, what city were you in when you watched this?
I was in New York. I was out on the East Coast. And it was enjoyable to see it. Wind up watching other sci-fi shows, but nothing bit me as much as that. There was Time Tunnel. There was Land of the Giants. There was Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Say again?
Lost in Space?
Lost in Space was another one. that I wanted. Well, of course, fell in love with Crush, Kill, Destroy. You know, the whole thing. Warning, Will Robinson.
Danger, Will
It's
Robinson.
Yep. And then there was Buck Rogers. All of that stuff I used to watch. I'm talking the early Buck Rogers, not the one that became the serial. I'm talking
Buster,
about the one where you can actually see the string as the ship flew across the screen.
Buster Keaton, right? That was.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
From back in the day. So huge, huge, huge sci-fi fan.
Okay. Did you all start collecting? Were you doing uniforms and costumes?
No, actually, I never did a uniform back then. I collected comic books. I didn't have the pulp novels when I was that young. I went to my first convention. However, I did not go to the very first Star Trek convention. That I did not go to. But when conventions were just beginning to start up back then, and I did go to a couple. So I was too shy at the time to stand in line and meet William Shatner. But I did meet some of the other people that were there, like Tony Todd and the guy who was in, I forget his name, but he was in From Dusk Till Dawn. He was the one that had the crotch cannon. He did a lot of his fabrications and everything. He called himself Sex Machine, I think, in the thing. So I met, there was a lot of them, a lot of horror people. Back time, they lumped all the sci-fi people in with the horror people.
Right.
It wasn't
Well,
separate.
back in the 70s is when I went to the first official convention in Chicago for Star
You
Trek.
went to the first Star Trek convention?
In Chicago, where they
Oh
had
my God, I must touch you.
it was Gene Roddenberry was there, Majel was there, D4,
Oh
all,
wow.
and this is when they really didn't know what conventions were. So
No, they didn't back then.
the crowds weren't like gangbusters back then, and you could actually wait, more than 10, 15 minutes in a line to get an autograph or
Hmm.
have a conversation. They had the incredible toys. The Mattel toys were making the phasers and the communicators.
Yep.
Model kits. You remember the AMT model
Oh
kits?
yeah, I built a Enterprise twice.
Right. And I went. My mom made me a Spock shirt because that was my guy. Um,
Oh,
so she did the whole. It didn't look anything like the show, but when you're a kid, it's as real as it's gonna get.
yes, it is.
Do you remember the photo novels they had of episodes?
Oh yeah,
Each page was a photo from
yeah.
the show. Okay. Um, so you're in New York. At what point? Where was your first convention? New York.
It was downtown in New York. I forgot the name of the hotel, but it was not too far off of it was not too far off Avenue of Americas or somewhere around there. I remember going, and I went with a friend of mine. And cosplay wasn't as big just yet. We had people walking around like with the Grand Wizard. He was actually on a couple of shows. I had a chance to meet a bunch of them down there. I just had an aversion to cosplay for the longest time. I never wanted to do cosplay for some reason.
You mean to stand out?
I just thought it was a line too far because back then I was a nerd, but I didn't want to. I just thought that I wasn't going to be like it. It just had a bad connotation when I was growing up. The people who dressed up in the uniform and everything like that.
Okay, I got to tell the viewers who are watching this, that's so ironic because this man right here, Mr. Nathan Adams, he's got some of the most primo next generation admiral. I believe you got Discovery now too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I got two Discovery uniforms. Now I got a Picard uniform. I got everything coming up now, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, he went from I don't want anything to do with it because that's too much to I think he's one of the best cosplayers out there. And when you see the quality of the outfits, it's really impressive. So, but we'll get back to your group and talk about the recruiting you do at conventions. Um, for those three people on the planet who have never heard of Star Trek, how would you, in a tagline, one or two sentence tagline, describe the series Star Trek to somebody?
That's a good one. Roddenberry tried to say it's a wagon train to the stars, but that's not exactly it. I would say it's a story of humanity that science fiction happens to be the background, not the driving force. It's more of a story about personal relationships, and sci fi just happens to be the environment it takes place in. So that's what I would say.
And the reason I ask that, because it's well into almost 60 years now, isn't it? Um,
Oh yeah.
so, and there have been five, six, seven iterations of television series, two animated series. I think they're up to 18 feature films if you include the JJ stuff, and so on and so forth. So Star Trek was the original. I want to say the original catalyst for the fandom community. Now, of course, they have fandoms for games and horror films, and
Everything.
yeah, I really believe that Star Trek is what started it all, both story
Hmm.
wise, both fandom wise, even the merchandising. I mean, there was nothing way back when, and now you buy a video game and there's 18 action figures for your video game. That wasn't done back in the 60s and the
No, it
70s.
wasn't.
So, um, so those of you who haven't seen Star Trek, what's wrong with you? No, uh,
Yeah,
there's,
seriously, you need to go see it now.
there's a there's a lot of good things out there. You're not going to like everything, which is okay, but you've got a lot to choose from and a lot to absorb to enjoy the content of the stories. And I think
Well,
that
let me say something which a lot of people aren't aware of, and I actually did this um, in a speech at a job I worked, corporate job, financial company, and I had to do a presentation. And the presentation I picked was based on Star Trek. And what was really interesting for me is at first when they heard that I was going to do a presentation on Star Trek, you hear people like, "Oh, there's going to be bad." But I went through and explained stuff that people weren't aware of, how Star Trek was a catalyst for a lot of things we have now. And a lot of people aren't aware that sliding doors, when I was growing up, there was no such animal. You had to go pick the door open. People saw sliding doors on Star Trek, they had to do it. First CDs was on Star Trek, the Library of Atos. He used the CD to define where they were going to send them through the gate.
the little
The first
disc.
floppy, yep, the little disc. The first floppy disks were the ones that Spock
You remember
used to
their
put them.
you remember their data cartridges,
Yep,
those
yep,
little box things, whatever they are.
yep,
They're like mini cassette things.
yep. That it came again on Star Trek. They weren't aware that we have flip phones. They weren't aware that we actually do have antimatter and that we actually have them in magnetic containment fields. So when I explained all of those things, they were astounded. They didn't realize that Star Trek became a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have biobeds. When I was in the Marines, they had hypo sprays. They used to give us shots with the hypo spray. It was a lot of the stuff people saw and went, why can't we have that? So it sparked a lot of imagination. If you look at NASA and just take a poll from when they leave the Discovery and the Perseverance and the other shows that are on there, almost half of the people on there are Star Trek fans who got inspiration from watching Scotty.
Exactly. And Lieutenant Uhura, played by Nichelle Nichols, she
Hmm.
is the forefront of going out there. She actually recruited women into
Oh
the
yeah.
into the NASA force. But in terms of inspiration, Whoopi Goldberg is the one who told the world that, she ran to her mother in the kitchen and said, "Look, mommy, there's a black woman on TV, and she ain't no maid. She's
Yeah.
in charge." So back in the '60s, that was a great inspiration to what was out there. Do you feel the newer shows inspire as the original shows did?
Well, the newer shows are trying, and they're really pushing to put exclusivity in everything right now, which I kind of see and appreciate, to make relationships across the board just relationships, not necessarily defined in a role that have to be male or female, that it's a relationship. And it's causing some people's eyes to wake up to realize that everybody's basically the same. Everybody has hopes and dreams and desires. It doesn't matter what flesh suit that they're wearing. It just happens to be that way. I think they try to touch on it a little bit with the trill, because trills were going in and out of male or female things. So they're doing that. They're putting people in leadership. Like, it surprised everyone when Avery Brooks became the first person of color to be a captain, and they gave him a raise on the show because he was first on Deep Space Nine. He was a commander.
Right, because he was, and the logic, and a lot of people don't get into the logic of the series, which it's based on the U.S. Navy. He was in command
Mm-hmm.
stationary base, which there would be no captain on it. But as soon as they added the Defiant, they could now give him that title and run the station and command the ship and all that other stuff. But um, I'm gonna. The only thing is, I would say is all the way through Enterprise, I believe Star Trek. Rick Berman, the original producer, showrunner for the after Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the show, I think kind of stayed true to the essence of the inspiration and the passion of the humanity side and doing good. I think it's new, this new generation, Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks. I think they're trying to be something different, and it's just not Trek for me, in my opinion. I mean, Lower
I
Decks
understand.
is trying to be, I think, the Simpsons of Star Trek, but it's not hitting the mark at all for me. Uh,
Now, I understand where you're going, and I gave that a lot of thought on why it's doing this way. And I'll tell you my rationale for it, and you can let me know if you go along with it. If you notice right now, the generation that is coming after us, they are entertained a lot of flash. There's got to be excitement. There's got to be stuff going on. There's got to be, the doom, doom, doom with the lights and action and all these action movies, all this stuff. So they're now the generation that would like stand in front of a microwave and go, hurry up! They don't want to go through the storylines and stuff like we did. This like, oh my God, this is just all character driven. When we're going to see explosions, where we're going to see lens flare, where we're going to see. So the younger crowds see this and it excites them because they get all the explosion, all the noise, all that stuff. But we grow up, like you said, with the other Star Trek, where there's a lot more on relationship and character building and everything else. It's like, wait, this whole episode, there was no fighting. That sucked.
right, but I always thought of something, and I truly believe of the original series, and of course Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, especially the last couple seasons of Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's always something I could go back to. Something that I could rewatch, and
Oh, timeless.
if I don't pick up something I did before, I might see
Yeah,
something new or a better angle, or just appreciate it that much more because hey, this episode is Let That Be Your Last Battlefield is talking about black
that
and
was good.
relationships, or this Trill episode is talking about gender identification, or this,
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise episode is talking about inclusiveness of just because you're another race, you're blue and have horns, doesn't mean you're bad, um, that kind of thing. So I don't get that from. I get a little bit of it from Picard, but I don't get that at all from Discovery. And I think that lens flare, lots of explosions, and we've got to invent new space technology that in the real world of physics would never occur. I mean, I still don't get the Discovery's what's it called? Bug drive, worm drive.
Oh, actually, I did research on that. You know me, and you know how I'm a science person. I studied science and I researched it. So when they came out with the spore drive,
Spore drive.
and when they went to go look at the spore drive, the mycelial network, that is an actual real network they found that trees use to communicate and talk through and transfer information going back and forth. Getting the tardigrade, I don't know where they got that from. But the thing is that mycelial network actually does exist, and
Okay.
you can travel information. So adding the ship to it,
I
I
can
don't
get
know.
I can get that part of it in terms of okay, maybe they're plants communicate in particular ways or whatever, but to translate it into such a large scale and then get the that engineer, the blonde haired engineered guy,
Yeah,
he becomes part of it. Just got it crossed the line of believability and my suspension of my what's that called, suspension of disbelief,
belief. Yep.
where I can't. My brain says this isn't real. This even I know it's fake. I know it's 25th century or I don't know where Discovery is now, but it just didn't work in terms of story. And I think to counter your comment earlier, I think in making it, I think if you think they're making it for the young people, I think they're making it for the wrong reasons. I watch the other Treks, the old Treks, because they're rewatchable. That those those original series were made 60 years ago, and they, if you can get past the candy buttons and and the walls that wobble and the big rubber rocks, if you can get past all that, it's still about the story, and it's still about
That's the thing. It's extremely character driven, and I think with Discovery, when they hit notes of excellence, is when they concentrate on the story and the relationships. When it comes down to different on the relationships, like I give you an example of what you're saying, and I follow that because when I was active duty, we went and saw um, Independence Day with Will Smith. Okay, a lot of people say it's a great movie. I kept yelling at the screen. They had to almost escort me out because I found that some sci-fi, that was the moment that I discovered that some sci-fi, you can't turn your brain on. You just gotta sit and watch because you have. I'll give you. I see what you get ready to say something, but I want to tell you that the points that got for me, like when you had in Independence Day. If nobody have seen it, you need to pause this on YouTube, watch it because I'm going to spoil it right now. When the spaceship comes and it goes to blow up the White House, you see, and they're in Air Force One. Air Force One is full throttle. Okay. The fireball is chasing Air Force One as it screams to the sky. I can go with that. You get Will Smith's girlfriend, who, true, she made it work out because she was a stripper, looks in her rear view mirror, sees a fireball coming, gets out of her car, dodges through traffic, takes multiple attempts to kick open a door, and then yell for the dog to come. And the dog comes before the fireball gets to them. Now, when the fireball gets to them, she's in an enclosed area. First off, all that flame should have asphyxiated her and she should have been dead on the spot. But yet she comes out with smuts on her face and able to. So it's like, come on. And then you have an alien spaceship. Well, you already have the aliens got all these tentacles, but yet they get in the spaceship and it's controlled by just a two-hand yoke. And I don't care if you do have a Mac. You're not going to upload a virus to an alien computer. It just... So, yeah, they told me to shut up and just turn my brain off, and then I enjoyed it.
But playing devil's advocate to that,
Okay.
you got to understand that the virus thing, that's, although not reasonable in the real world, it's still plausible that a virus could be inserted into some sort of electronic system and destroy it. It's still plausible. Granted,
Okay.
I don't see how they figured out the language to talk to each other because obviously they're different systems.
Yeah.
But it's plausible that that could happen. Now the suffocating. Okay, you want to get technical. You realize the transporter in Star Trek universe is impossible.
Yeah, the amount of storage it would take to store all that information and then put it out is beyond. Yeah, I know.
Forget the storage. The breaking down of the molecular level of the atoms into their whatever they are, and then moving them millions of miles away without a receptor to de-scramblize them. The transporter, it's just, and the only reason, and for people who don't know Star Trek, the only reason that was written, it was more cost effective for Gene Roddenberry to write that people can beam from the ship to the planet in 3 seconds or 4 seconds in a series of shots that they could repeat versus get into a shuttle, land the shuttle, get out of the shuttle, that kind of
Yep. And show all the special effects of going through an atmosphere, of walking to the shuttle bay, and everything else.
So it was a cost thing. So
here's a trivia for you.
Uh-oh.
When Roddenberry first pitched Star Trek to the studios, they didn't want to take it, but they asked him a lot of questions on how he would keep costs down. And when he said they would only visit planets that were Earth-like. So they went, oh, really? And then Lost in Space came out. So they took some ideas from Roddenberry, and that's why you had that in order to get, but you're right.
I believe Lost in Space was first, wasn't it?
No, I think that it came, Lost in Space may have been aired first, but I do know that Roddenberry pitched it.
It was black and white for 2 seasons in the early 60s, and then it went color when Star Trek premiered in color, because it was the first primetime sci-fi series to come out in color back in the 60s. And that's why the Peacock and all that was their big promotion. Okay.
Brought to you in Technicolor.
Okay, so let's do this real quick. Let's talk about your group. I'm gonna share a screen here, and this is. Tell us all about this.
Okay, Starfleet Underground. That is where we have a podcast. However, if you are listening right now, and I'm sure you are on YouTube, and you're under the age of 18, you need not to take any note of this address nor where it's at because it is not for you.
Do
We
you have?
get together.
Is there a disclaimer here?
Actually, we start the podcast with a disclaimer. Now, if you look above, we have the crew up there. We have myself. If you go back down a little bit,
Okay, tell me when to stop.
okay, right there. There's myself and there's Patrick Hall. You know Patrick, I know personally.
Oh,
And if you go down a little more, there is Rocky, who does all of our engineering work. He records it, he edits it, he puts in the sound effects. He does a great job. And then you have Heather over there, who's our science officer. And she also, in order to put herself up, she has a site called the Vegas Aces, where she teaches people how to be casino dealers for free.
wow.
So, and that's a real big deal. She has her own channel called Bases Aces. And again,
You think,
she teaches people, she has online classes, everything.
you think she'd do my show? I'd love to interview that.
Yeah, of course. I'll go ahead and I'll let her know as soon as I'm done with you. And
Okay.
if you scroll down,
Okay.
um, this Fred, who was our original engineer, unfortunately passed away.
Oh,
And we honored him by renaming our ship to him. So our ship is named after him. And then further down is all our guests that we've had on over the time that we've been there. In fact, we need to get you as a guest.
oh, I'd love it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, but you'll be forced to watch Enterprise.
I loved Enterprise.
Okay, good. I'll go ahead and I'll make arrangements about it.
Yeah, and just the only thing is, just Discovery. If you want somebody to be critical about Discovery, you want me on the show because I mean, and the reason I say that is I think a lot of the Star Trek fandom tends to be a very, what's the word? And they should be very pro Trek and whatever they enjoy and like, but they're not as accepting as I said before to criticisms of what they like, and sometimes it's really, because I do reviews. I'm an actual critic. I actually review things and go to theaters and movies and product and all that kind of thing. So I have to look at things with an more objective eye, and I'm a big fan.
Hmm.
So it's harder for me to be objective, but a lot of times I have to tell you, like a lot of people were upset because Discovery got panned in its first season critically. Nobody liked it in terms of the critics, and then the fans of the show couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, well, you're not looking at it objectively. You're not looking at it as a series in terms of story and content and all that other stuff.
Mm.
I can only look at lens flares for so long before I get bored. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh no, and if you scroll through, you see all of the guests we've had on over the time there. So these are all the people that have stopped by our show, or as we like to say, that's Todd Stashwick. I don't know if you know who he is. He's one of those actors that when you see him, you go, "Oh, it's that guy." He's been on Star Trek. He's been on America Horror Story. He's been on Gotham. He's been on Strange Angel. He's been on so many different things. It's such a charismatic, really good guy.
I love American Gothic. That's a wonderful, wonderful show.
He's just all over. And so these are all the other people that we have that have dropped by. And Darnell. So Darnell and Lana. So
Oh
they've
yeah.
dropped by. In fact, we need to kidnap you. As soon as I get your coordinates, I'll send the information out there.
Okay.
And Bill Blair was a Kardashian on Deep Space Nine. So we actually wind up getting him on there. And of course, Admiral Holt.
Oh yeah.
So he was in Star Trek Continues.
Oh, is that
And
a motion picture outfit he's wearing?
yes, he was on the Star Trek Continues that was on YouTube for a bit.
Okay, I love those uniforms.
So, and then you see all the different cans. In fact, I'm going to get your location and we're just going to quickly beam you up one day and just make sure you got to let me know what time you take a shower so we don't get you during that.
I don't care. I'm at an age you can grab me anytime. As long as you got a towel
Yeah.
I can
Or
wear.
what makes it fun? We use the tribbles as a loofah.
Oh, hey, I got mine.
Good, so that'll work. And so that's the site. And there's yours is going to be on here. These are all the interviews, things that we've done over the time.
Oh,
So your link will be listed on our website.
nice. Thank you. Yeah, and if any of these guys, the actors you mentioned, I'd love to talk to any of them. Andy, would Rick do it? What'd be great is to get. What are the chances of getting? Okay, let me get here. What are the chances of getting these four right here and doing
Easy.
my show?
Easy. We just got to pick a time.
Okay, you heard it, everybody. I got witnesses. Uh, okay, anywhere else I should go on your site here? Is there anything I should click?
No, we have. You see where it has. We have the episodes there. That's on SoundCloud, but we also have other links because we're on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. I think it's under media. If you go to media, I think it has all of our links. If
Media.
I'm not mistaken. No, media I think goes all the way down on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
We do have the other stuff. So if you get a chance to follow us, we're Star Trek under G on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. So we're on most of the social medias.
Are your shows on YouTube? You have a YouTube channel?
Yes, we do. That's under Heather. So you can find it under Heather Ferris.
Here's the Geek Authority. Where do I go?
Heather Farrell. Heather Farrell. She gets me because I keep mispronouncing her last name.
Heather Farrell, Ferr.
Yep, IS. There you go. She popped right up.
Where? Oh, disappeared.
You almost.
There
it is. First link. And that's if you want to be able to get our shows on YouTube.
Okay.
And on this channel on Monday mornings, usually at 9:00, unless we have some sort of temporal thing happen, the show premieres and you get Rocky, myself, and her will join the premiere to talk with fans while the show is being played. And she also has some earlier in the conventions where she went to the conventions and recorded a lot of the panels.
Okay, let's see. Do you have the podcast on a playlist or what? Yeah, there we go. Podcast 67. So, hello. Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a bit now. And again, I must say, if you guys or anyone who's watching this under the age of 18, if we find out that you're listening to this without the consent of your parents, we will send the Jemadar to your house and tie you down to the bed and tickle you until you cry.
Okay. For those, obviously there's adult content is what he means. So you want to be careful about going to that show. I don't know.
Playing it at work at full volume because we got stuff on here that make a Marine blush.
Does each episode have a disclaimer?
Actually, we start off the show with a disclaimer, usually to get out, but I'm going to have to, that's a good idea. We need to start putting it out there if it's not already out there. I'll talk to our engineer.
Yeah, just because I know YouTube and a lot of the other things, they're very particular. As long as you have that disclaimer, saying we have explicit language, explicit, that kind of thing. It's not intended for people under 18. You're covered, so they can't. Okay. And look what I'm doing. See my little arrow?
Mm-hmm.
Tell Heather she needs she needs to subscribe to me, and I'm doing.
Okay, I will definitely tell her that.
So she calls you tonight. Who's this Lorenzo Geek Authority guy?
No, we talk on the regular. We have a group chat we all talk on. So,
okay.
For show ideas, what's coming up, what's happening, and so forth. Or, or can't believe the day I had that guy was a real Ferengi, type of stuff.
Okay, and for those who don't know, the Jem'Hadar are bad people and they do bad things and blah blah blah.
Yes,
because we know. More people would probably know Klingons as being bad, but I guess they're not bad anymore, or are they? I don't know.
I guess they're bad, but they're bad on our side, which makes them good.
Okay. Okay, so this guy here is wearing his favorite. Is this your game? You said favorite game?
Yeah, there's a game out there for those of you who may recognize it. The N7 shirt from a game called Mass Effect, which I played all 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I found the game to be very interesting, and I really enjoyed it.
Do you play the Star Wars Battlefront 2?
I haven't yet. I really, everyone tells me how good it is, and I've not picked it
Well,
up, and I haven't done it.
if you do, there's a way you can play with people online, via the
Hmm.
and you can pair up. So if you ever get it, I'm pretty good at it. I'm at a max level with my Jedi stuff, but it's a really fun game. You play in all the environments. You can be a pistol holder, you can be a saber holder, and you
Yeah.
can be bad guy or good guy.
Yeah,
Lightsaber.
my nephew plays it a lot, and he usually winds up playing a droid or Yoda. He plays the droid like Roger, Roger. He plays that guy often.
Okay, so if you ever do, let's get on and play.
All right, that'll work.
So who's this?
That's my niece. She's my heart. I don't have a daughter, but she's like my pseudo daughter. That's Alex.
Alex. How old is that?
I, Alex just turned 16,
Oh,
and she's fully aware when she starts dating, I will be waiting outside the house with her father with a machete.
not a phaser, just a machete.
Machete, because it like Rick said in Robin Hood, it's like I'll cut his heart out with a spoon. Why a spoon? Because it'll hurt more.
Now, this question's coming. Is she a Star Trek fan?
No, she's tolerated her uncle. She's seen me in my Starfleet uniform because I've actually had to leave the convention and go to sit parties and gatherings with uniform, but she hasn't watched it yet. So
Oh,
she's a big Star Wars fan and a Mandalorian fan,
oh,
but
love.
not the Star Trek yet.
Okay, let me do this real quick since you mentioned it. We'll come back to this. You ready?
Hmm. Oh, you've redressed him. That is the way.
That is the way. Look, he even has his phaser.
Look, that is the way. And he's got a cloaking device. I
Actually,
love it.
actually, it's his little. You watch the show? Are you familiar with the show?
Yes, I'm a big fan.
So that's the control knob on the Razor Crest.
Oh, he's got it. That's pretty cool.
Anyway, universes can cross, and I believe in it. Okay,
Yes, so do I.
where are we? All right, here we go. Who's this?
That's my nephew. That's Christian. He's the big Star Wars fan, huge Star Wars fan, and he plays Battlefront.
Does he really? What's
No,
his name?
he's in that game a lot. Christian.
Christian. Okay, Christian.
Yep.
Find me. I'm Italian CA63 on Battlefront 2. So if you ever see me, we can pair up and beat the GBs because I'm a G show out of out of the dark side. Unless he's a dark fan, he might be a dark fan.
No, he's not a Dark fan. I've never seen him do Dark. He does Yoda, mostly the droids,
Okay.
and some of the other warriors. And that's me. I don't remember where I was or what I was doing.
I'm looking at the wall and there's a girl behind you.
Yeah, I don't recall where I'm at.
Okay.
It's funny. Well, now I know where I'm at. That was at I was at Knott's Berry Farm
Oh,
in the train.
right. Okay, party time.
And that's over in Andy's house. And that there is Alana, there's Anna, there's Andy over on the side, there's Corinne, there's oh my God, I'm blanking on some of these names.
Uh-oh.
That's what I get for not having coffee. Yeah, that's over at his place.
Very nice. And this is what, like a New Year's Eve party or something?
No, that was just a gathering before the dreaded COVID hit.
Uh,
So, and they actually dragged me out because I'm not there's Anna and there's Karine and there's Karina and there's and Lana.
right. And Anna, I like what Anna does with her outfits. She does some great cosplay.
Anna does always such a great job. She's an excellent fabricator. And
Oh my
she
God.
does really good work. Really amazing.
She feminized that whole Kirk thing with the
Yeah.
stash and everything. It's really, really cool.
She does it. And she's also a humanitarian. She raises and takes care of foster cats until they find a home.
Wow.
So she does a really good job.
Now I'm very allergic to cats, so I could never visit her. But I'd love to, Anna, if you're out there, contact me. I'd love to have you come on the show and talk about that. Oh my God.
I'll have to bring that up to her also.
Yeah, I haven't seen her since the convention. So,
No, everybody's been holed up in place now since this thing happened.
in fact, I think the last time I saw her was at Doctor Who, Gallifrey.
Yep. Which is another show that I'm a big fan of.
Yep, because you like Doctor Who. I know you do.
Oh yeah, I've watched him for years.
Never mind. I won't tell you how long I've. Anyway, who's this? Now this is a
I cosplayer. Actually, I met the real actor who does Dr. Phlox, and I'm blanking on his name because it's in the evening here.
Ethan
But I
Phillips.
showed him this picture, and he had a double take because he thought he actually took the picture. That's how good that cosplay is.
Yeah, if Ethan Phillips is the actor who played him.
No, Ethan Phillips was the one that did Neelix.
Neelix,
He's Dr. Phlox.
Dr. Phlox. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Okay, are we just old and forgetful? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what's happening with me. I didn't have my quota of coffee.
Oh,
Um,
anyway. Okay, go boldly. Now this is at
yep.
the right?
Yes, it is. That's actually that one there is at the San Diego Comic Con. We got lucky to get a table there. And so we've had a table every year for the past several years, but with COVID, they've canceled. So hopefully we still have our spot next year.
Yeah, I think they saved everybody. I think
Yep.
they're not doing it for 2021, but they're going to be back in 2022.
Yep. We have a good time, and our table is always happening. If you're anybody who's listening who you actually need to come down to Comic Con, you come up to the fan table area, and our table's always open. We let people sit, relax, everything else.
Yeah, and the fan
Oh,
table.
there's R2. Go ahead.
Yeah, the fan table area is if you go to Comic Con is where they kind of have this little cafe. I don't know, cafe, restaurant, whatever they want to call it. It's on the upper level where the escalators go up, and it's a great view. They've got seats sometimes, kind of thing, and then all the fan tables are along the wall. And you've had the same spot for the couple years now, right?
Yep, they gave us that spot, so which is really awesome. We try to have chargers for people who need to charge their phone who forgot. We try to get extra chairs so someone wants to sit for a while and rest at our table, they can. And because you've utilized the service, we'll let people hide bags if they need to go around and do things. So,
Absolutely. Now,
and there's our Astro Droid. That's R2D2.
you got an Astrotech droid in Star Trek? Really?
Well, actually, what had happened is that we had went through what we thought was a shortcut, and it was a wormhole, and we wound up being in front of a sandcrawler, and R2D2 was there.
How funny!
Yeah, he saw it so also.
Okay.
And that's the 1701st. That's the fleet, which I am now fleet admiral of.
Wow. And how many pips is that? 5? 6?
Yep, 5. 5 for fleet admiral.
Okay. I like this one.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. That's on our new starship. We just got commissioned. However, I am now in relaxing tunic. So been kicking back. It's a brand new ship, had the brand new smell. Except Heather keeps burning stuff in the galley. How do you burn things with a replicator? I have no idea, but she manages to do it.
Well, you can request it, right? I'd like my toast a little burnt, and it would come out that way, right?
No, it's just somehow when she says it, I think the replicator just decides not to listen to her and just burns it.
Doesn't like her. Okay. Anyway, okay, so this is the part I want to talk to you about, and we've discussed this before the interview. So let's talk a little bit about. I asked you about the philosophy or the how would you describe Star Trek? Are you of all the series, and I've got a phaser to your head. Of all the series, is there one that stands out as your most favorite?
Oh my goodness, you would do this to me, huh?
One series. If
I had to pick one series.
Yeah, I'm going to throw you on an island and I'm going to give you all the DVDs of one series. Which one would you take? No other entertainment.
It would probably have to be TNG because there's a lot more of them and it'll last me longer.
Yeah, that's a good reason.
But I will say TNG has some of the best writing, I thought, on a lot of different series. There was a lot. There's the ones with Picard with the flute, which is one of my favorite series.
Mexican flute, yeah, that's
yeah, one of my all-time favorites. Another one of my all-time favorites
called
was the two. the inner light.
Inner light, light.
Inner light, yes. And another one that was one of my all-time was the two-parter where they had turned Picard into the Borg, because it was the first time in a long time that I watched a Star Trek show. And when the season finale hit, I was like, how in the world are they going to fix this? It really had a lot of inspiration. And
That's
for how the series ended, with the two-parter, I thought was it blew away
the
series
episode.
finale on everything else.
For those who don't know, the episode he's talking about with the Borg, that's called "The Best of Both Worlds," Part One, which was the season 4 finale, and then the season 5, or is it season 3? Whatever finale, and then the season opener was Part 2. Um, the
It's
final
really good.
the final episode was one 2-hour movie. It wasn't a two-parter.
Was it two? Was it okay? 1 2 hour movie, and it really you have the introduction of Q, which John DeLance as a person is amazing, and as an actor doing Q is just with such fun and such. You just love him. You just shoot up the screen, and then Guyan.
Guided.
Oof.
I do have to give credit to the producers for bookending the series because just
Yes.
for those who don't know, Star Trek, the original series was 5-year mission, only ran 3 years, but every series after that, with the exception of Enterprise, ran for a contracted 7 years. So I love the way they bookended Next Generation because they open with Q and they close with Q. And like he said, John Delancey's an incredible performer and kind of ran with that role. Um,
Oh
and
my goodness, didn't he?
and a lot of
He
people think he was in like 20 episodes. He really only did mainly like one appearance, maybe two a season. It wasn't that often, but he did come back in like DS9 and Voyager. And what was
Lower
funny,
decks.
one of my favorite DS9 episode is with Majel Barrett and Odo. I don't know if you remember. He's what's the word? He needs to go back
That's,
in his tub or whatever that thing is,
yep.
but he's embarrassed to do that because she would see him, you know, and then she takes off her wig, and it's like, okay, I'm just as vulnerable as you are. I remember that episode.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
There was some good writing on DS9 as well.
yeah, the
There's
first
there's
seasons are amazing. The whole thing,
they like
I love Dax. Uh,
well like there was ones that I really liked that talked really good about post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, with rest his soul with Aaron Eisenberg, where he lost a leg as Nog,
right.
and how he had to deal with that. They dealt with a very powerful and emotional subject, and they did so well in it. And then you had some people who said they didn't like Under a Pale Moonlight, which is one of my favorites, is when Cisco has to fabricate evidence to try to get the Romulans to join. And the reason why I liked it um, was because you had a chance to see how he had to fight himself, well, what he thought was Starfleet principles, in order to try to do the greater good, that everything's not cut and dry. And the line in there that stands out to me with clarity is when he tried to get Quark not to press charges on that guy. And Quark kept asking for this and asking for that. And Cisco was just like, okay. And the Quark looks at him and says, thank you for restoring my faith in rules of acquisition, something, something. And he goes, what was that? That every man has his price. And the look on Cisco's face, you can like, oh my God, that.
And there's even, and as far as acting goes, Avery Brooks is an amazing performer.
Oh yeah.
One of the shows, as far as black actors on television, one of the show's episodes that I really enjoyed was he directed it as well. Was where they go back to the
Oh
cart,
yeah.
the what is it called, the comic book. They're doing basically comic books and
Yep.
art.
Pup novels.
Yeah, and that episode, I mean, it covered the black issue, the racism, the whole. It was really, and he directed it. So
We actually reviewed that one on our podcast for Black Lives Matter. In order to, that was our homework assignment for people to watch that episode, to talk about it and how things are and were. And it really was a powerful episode. I saw an interview about it, and they talked about that point where Avery Brooks breaks down on the floor and he loses it. He actually really did lose it on the scene. It took a while for him to get him out there. He put his soul into that moment,
And
and
what
it was
and I don't know if people understand how that works, but they do kind of a master shot, and then they go in for close-ups or everything. But my understanding is that when Avery did that scene for the close-ups and the reactions, he recreated it each and every time for everybody. So when you see like Nana Visitor or Odo, what's his name? Uh, uh,
we're both like that now.
my God,
Renee, Renee,
anyway, the
Renee.
wonderful actor playing Rene Auberjonois.
Yep.
When you see their reactions, they're reacting to Avery's acting because even though you don't see it, he recreated that performance for everybody, which is what giving actors do. Because
Mhm.
you can't react to somebody acting against you if they're not giving you the performance they're giving for the camera, because you're going to react to whatever they're doing on camera, and it has to be real, so to speak. Anyway, that's technical stuff. Now, and I'm not a big fan of all the series of the classic series, I guess you call them. I'm not a big fan of DS9 in terms of it's probably on the bottom of my list, but it does have some incredible episodes and
It
some
does.
incredible stories. Um, it just season 4 became the Worf hour for me, and
Oh,
I just got bored of Worf taking the shower and Worf washing his hair and Worf gets married and Worf eats his Wheaties. It's just every episode was a Worf thing, and I just got old for me. Um,
and don't forget, Worf drinks his prune juice.
yes, and don't forget the other thing too is that whole controversy of the Dax going from Dax to Ezra. Um,
Hmm.
that was not well done in terms of story wise. I don't think. Um,
I was surprised at it myself on how that went, and I guess they were trying to change things up in order to give more of a story thing. But Dax, I mean, she's married now. The actress that plays her, she's married to Leonard Nimoy's son,
Adam,
Jerry Farrell, Jerry
Terry,
Farrell,
Terry Farrell,
Terry Farrell,
Terry.
and now Jerry Nimoy. Um, her as an actor, I really like her presence and how she was confident and still like a warrior. And I like the interplay between her and Avery Brooks, where it felt natural. Was he's like he calls her old man
Right.
and everything.
I
So
I don't know if you know, but it was all political why she left. She was actually fired from the job. She hadn't hurt her career at all because she went on to do that Ted Danson
mhm.
series, and
And
she's
that was a good show too. I liked her in that.
yeah, but it was a political thing. They did it, and all I'm saying is they didn't cover it story wise. Why the Trill had to go to another host, and they just kind of you wake up, you turn on the new episode, and it's like, oh,
Oh, they touched it a little bit. I forgot one of the Kardashians shot her in the church,
okay.
and she was mortally wounded. And then that's when they put the Trill into a new body, and the
And
new body woke up and goes, "Yeah, I think I want to be with the doctor now."
and you were okay with that because I wasn't. So
It just it I wasn't a big fan of that because a lot of times some of the Star Trek did was they started relationships and then for some reason they decide to break them and switch off,
yeah,
which is one of the things which I had liked about, and this is jumping sci-fi shows, and I apologize, about Babylon 5. Babylon 5 had relationships that evolved on the show, and they didn't like, all right, I'm going to be with this one now because she's a psychic. All right, I'm going to be with this one now because she's got a sexy bald head and a long ponytail. I'm going to, the relationships evolved and you had a chance to see it. And maybe it was different because the guy wrote out the whole 5 seasons. He knew from the point from where he wanted to start and where he wanted to end, and he kept it under lock and key. So nobody could get advance on it. So maybe that's why the storyline. But Babylon 5, if people want to watch it, has really, I mean, it's dated now from the special effects, but some really good story writing on that.
I don't think so. I think Babylon 5 holds up. The We got to remember. Let's give a nod to Walter Koenig, who was a regular on.
Oh yeah, Vesper.
He was great. I was.
Oh my God, what an evil little cuss he was on that show.
I mean, he went from this nice little Russian to this evil, alien.
He did.
Good for him. Um,
Yeah, he did a good job. He tore the scene up every time he was on. From a purely personal color standpoint, all right. When I saw the original Battlestar Galactica, and I liked the original one, it had its moments and everything. Then a new one came out, and then I'm watching the new one and goes, wait a minute, the Cylons are human now. Wait, what? Colonel Ty was a black guy. Now he's an old drunk white man with an eye patch. Wait, what happened to Boomer? And Boomer is it. So I had a little bit misgivings on that part. But as you stated, the storyline and the writing, it just blew me away. It became,
and I'm with
oh
you.
my God.
I'm with you. When Starbuck walked on and it was Katie
And it was a woman. I know.
off a blonde woman, I'm like, what? And then I'm like, okay, her and Apollo, amazing, amazing dynamic.
Really good. Really good. I really enjoyed it.
And who could have taken Lauren Green's place as the commander of all this, other than like a guy like Edward James Olmos? He was a great adopt.
Oh, and such again, he's an actor that has such gravitas and such authority when he's on the screen. And Katie played so well off of that energy.
It's funny when Star Trek, the original series, they were talking about at the time. I think Star Trek IV was coming out, The Voyage Home. They were talking about this next generation. It's coming. It's going to launch the UPN network, Channel 13, and so on and so forth. I wasn't on the bandwagon of oh, I'm going to hate the show. You can't redo the original. I was kind of excited to see what they were going to do. It was the exact opposite for Battlestar Galactica for me, because I'm like, yay, Starbuck and Apollo, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Everything's changed. Genders changed, race has changed, and I'm like, ah. So how did you feel about Catherine Janeway? Now, she's technically, I don't know if you know this, she's technically not the first female captain. Do you know who
No.
is?
It was April. Captain, no, Rachel Garrett. Rachel Garrett was on the Enterprise C is when Natasha Yar went back through the hole in order to protect it, in order to get the Klingons. There was Rachel Garrett.
Actually, no. Before her, there was I don't know her name or the actress. It's the female captain on Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It's the first starship that what's the creature? The whale thing in space. Probe. The probe. It's the first ship that it turns off in the beginning.
That was a female captain on there.
A woman of color, a black woman.
Oh, I know the actress, but I didn't really. You're going to make me research that, because I thought, okay, you mean the first black captain?
Female.
Okay, female captain. Okay.
As far as the series goes, how do you think about Kate Mulgrew?
Now, with Kate Mulgrew, I think that she did a good job in the beginning, trying to show being a person who would, as a strong woman, who would take and listen to advice of her crew, and then still went and through and followed her instincts. So I did like that part. What I didn't like a little bit is that when Seven came on board, how they constantly tried to have them as a foil against one another. And then all of a sudden she's like the mentor to Seven. And then you have Seven and Harry trying to get together. And then you get Seven and the Doctor have things going. And then all of a sudden you have Seven and Chakotay. Huh?
I'm gonna flip that coin and say I'm gonna little disagree, because I think as the series progressed, I think the relationship that started with Seven, because she came out in the fourth season.
Yep.
I think that whole mentoring thing meant a lot to her and the entire crew.
Well, yeah, it did. But
I don't think that they bouncing relationships is what the series did. What I think it did is it explored what would work and what would not.
You bring up a good point on that.
Yeah, I don't think they were.
I can see that from your point.
Yeah, I don't think they were flighty like you implied that they were, because that's how I took it, and I may be wrong, but I think they were intending to show that there are different kinds of relationships. Some work and some don't. And
Now you put it that way, I can see that because in my mind, it didn't seem like she had landed on a successful relationship going through the different people. But now that if you put it that way, she was doing like everybody does. She was looking for something that worked.
I think what happened is
Okay.
she developed as a character, and if you saw by the end of
Okay.
the last episode, Endgame, they jump into the future when Voyager gets home, and you see Seven of Nine is a stable relationship. She's got a stable family, and she didn't get that overnight because she never grew up as a child. She was a Borg for most of her
Yep.
life, and then it was
Monica.
in the crew that kind of. I love that. I love Voyager. I thought it was great. I don't have any.
I liked it a lot. They had some really good episodes in Voyager. I
Yeah.
will say, like the one episode where another cliffhanger episode, which I thought was really good, is when the Kazon took the ship over
Oh yeah.
and they kicked everybody off on the planet and they left. And I'm thinking, like, how in the world are they going to get off this planet? It's just how. But they have the one guy who was a he was a psycho who's barely controlled psycho to be able to try to win the ship back. And you
Yeah.
have the doctor.
Okay. Do you remember how a couple of the episodes where the EMH was actually crossing that line of being both compassionate and almost human in terms of
Yeah.
his. I mean, oh, and then who could forget the episode of Tuvox, where
Oh my goodness. That's still a polarizing episode right now.
the melding of the two. Do we have the right to separate them into their? We just created this new entity. Do the other two lose their right to
Yeah,
exist?
that
Um,
was a really good episode.
all right, let's jump into Enterprise. I love Scott Bakula. I have worked with him on Quantum Leap. I know him as a person, so he's a really nice, down to earth individual.
He is.
And when I saw the first season and the second season, I was kind of like, it didn't work. By the third season and the first half of the fourth, because it was a short season, it really found its legs, and the captain was not angry anymore. I thought Scott was angry through the first two seasons. You know,
I think that has a lot to do with him personally because I've been a fan of Scott Bakula with Quantum Leap, and there was a movie he did which made me even more enamored of him. Was called Unnecessary Roughness, which is a football movie with Sinbad and stuff when he's a quarterback at an aging quarterback at school. And I'm glad you know him personally because you just confirmed what I thought. Because when he was at the convention and the lights went out, I heard, and he was supposed to do autographs, he refused to leave until everyone had their autograph. So that just endeared me and showed me the type of person that he is.
yeah, and in terms of like when I worked on Quantum Leap with him, he was one of those who ate with the crew. He's one of those that if he was fifth in line, he's number one on the call sheet. So for those who don't know about productions and
Mm-hmm.
movies, when you're number one on the call sheet, you're the, I don't want to say primo,
Yeah,
whatever.
you're the main guy.
Yeah, you set the tone for the actors
Yep.
and you set the tone for the crew. So when it was time to break for lunch and he happened to be 15th in line because the crew, he'd like, no, just go. I don't, just, and then he always use the excuse, I don't use a lot of makeup, so I don't, I'm not in any hurry because he's a guy. Guys don't tend to get
Mm-hmm.
made up and stuff. So he was very, very earthy, very fun.
He's a good one.
But let's talk about that a little bit about Enterprise. Enterprise, I thought started weak but got stronger.
I
Episodes
agree.
episodes I loved. I don't know if you remember the two-parter where Dean Stockwell was the guest star and he was an evil prison warden. Remember?
Oh yeah,
So not only was it a reunion for them because obviously doing
yeah.
Quantum, but they kind of played counter. He was an evil guy and he was, Archer was.
Oh, I
So
know the episode to bring you on our show.
okay, I I loved it all. So any
No, the reason why is because you have interesting background. Because with Dean being on Quantum Leap as well as as um, Captain Archer, you had him on. That you can give a really interesting behind the scenes kind of perspective out of from both actors.
Oh yeah, trust me, they work what's the word? I mean, they finish each other's sentences. I mean, in the acting is like watching them act together. It's like when they rehearse. Dean Stockwell is a very focused kind of actor, where Archer, what's his name?
Scott Bakula.
Bakula, kind of goes with the flow kind of thing. So if someone does something this way, another actor does something this way, he's one of those that adapts
So,
to whatever he's doing.
the phrase my father used to use a lot, which I think has fell out of use, is simpatico.
Okay.
I think I said that right.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Sympathetic. Oh my God, I'm butchering the word.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
somebody, whoever's on the show, correct it, put it in the comments so we know what we're talking about over there. That's right. Just put it right down in the comments because I'll see it, and then I will be embarrassed.
My excuse is always age. I'm getting older, and I'm surprised I remember my name every day. So
Hey, I'm doing well. Knock on wood. Hey, come in.
he's a comedian too, if you haven't figured out. Okay. So anyway, and other episodes that included that I really enjoyed. I don't know if you saw when Brent Spiner came on, and he was
Yeah.
Dr. Soon's, I don't know, father, grandfather, something like that. And he was again doing the robotics, and he was kind of a bad guy, and just to see that whole next generation energy mixed with this new crew was just dynamic on screen. But again, these are later episodes, so it took a while to get its feet. And then, of course, Archer is the one who started the United Federation of Planets. He's the one that made that initiative in the final episode. I did not like the final episode because it basically was a hologram.
That I didn't like either.
I mean,
now, I'll tell you what I did like, because we're talking earlier in your show about relationships. I like the slow buildup between Trip and T'Pol.
Oh yeah.
I think it was cheated for not seeing that really come into fruition when they did the end that with the holodeck.
You know why?
Trip when they cut the show, they canceled it.
No. Trip died. The character died. He gave
That's right.
So they couldn't be a relationship. But I'll tell you the reason why that episode, they cut the season short. So they already had that episode in the can, and they figured, okay, let's figure out a way to end the series on some positive note. And that's when they brought in oh boy, what's her name?
Frakes. Jonathan Frakes and Jonathan Frakes and oh my God.
Marina Sirtis.
Marina, yes, thank you.
Okay, and I mean I like them and I like what they did, but I thought it was just such a cheat. But when someone says, "Hey, your show's over, wrap it up," what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, when the show ended, when I saw that ending, I had to use a word from Battlestar Galactica. So that's Feldercarb.
Yeah. Well, I did like the way they ended. They started the United Federation of Planets, and we're left to assume Captain Kirk took over. But anyway, on the new Enterprise. No, actually, it would be April, right?
Robert S. April was the first captain in the Enterprise.
Right, and then James T.
Yep, James T. James Tiberius Kirk, not Ice-T, as some people would think.
And then they refurbished it, and then they destroyed it, and then they rebuilt it. So anyway. Okay, so let's talk a little bit technically. What do you think of the Enterprises? Do you have a favorite?
I think visually, the one that I liked was the Enterprise A. The nacelles and the blue lighting on the nacelles looked really smooth and good. I liked it. The Enterprise, say again?
The motion picture.
Motion picture.
You said A, right?
A. That was the one that went after, that was the starship, I think, they had after it blew up with Spock.
Star Trek 4, at the end of Star Trek 4. See, yes. I don't like that ship because it didn't work, remember? I like the motion picture version.
That was still, but then the motion picture version had a problem with the deflector, and they almost had like a meteor go through an asteroid go through it.
That was the antimatter flow.
Yeah, it was unbalanced on that.
That one lasted through 2 movies. Actually, 3 movies. Yeah. The fourth one, at the end of the fourth one, which is number 5, it was all broken and didn't work.
That's why. Okay, all right. I visually, I like the way it looked. So visually, I think I liked the ship was okay, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I love the way this ship looks. However, If you play some of the other games, I do like the E, which was in the one with Nemesis.
Right. Now I'm a favorite. I'm a fan. There's a video game out there called Star Trek Bridge Crew, and it's one of these virtual reality games where you have the headset
I've heard. I never played, but I've heard it's really good.
and you can go on the original series bridge and command.
Oh,
You can go on the D, Picards, and then you can go on the Aegis, which is from the J.J. Abrams Enterprise. Um, but the technology, I think of the, I don't know, I love the classic, the original, the design of the original. I like the controls in the next generation. Um, but I really, are you a big fan of the motion picture when they spend 10 minutes going around it? Did you enjoy that like I did?
yeah, because it was a beauty shot. I like seeing the beauty shot, and I when it comes to stuff like that, and when it comes to science, just science in general, I really get tingles. I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, critics
You
hated it,
know,
but I loved it. So,
there's times at the convention where I have people come to the table and try to out geek me when
uh-oh.
it comes to the stuff. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Um, I've actually had this talk with some people who love the original, and they talked about how come the JJ verse Enterprise was so radically different and why it didn't look like the original Enterprise. That was their biggest beef that they had. Logically, I don't know if it's true, but my headcanon says this. When Kirk's dad was on board the ship and the Miranda came through, the Narada came through the Klingon ship, and not the Klingon, the Romulan ship, the Narada came through. They scanned that ship to find out what it was doing, and everything else. And when they abandoned ship, they took all that information as well as the logs. So I'm thinking, what happens? You have a design team on Earth who's making a starship. They find out that their starship was just blown to smithereens. They look at all these scans and goes, "Wow, the inside of that one is bigger. You know why we don't go bigger? Oh, that one had like all these nice holodeck screens, and why we don't do that? Oh, theirs were really dark. We were going to go dark. Let's brighten it up. Let's make it." So I get just like that old saying about chaos theory, how a butterfly. I'm not, and I probably say it wrong, but when a butterfly flaps its wing in Africa, you have a monsoon in another part of the world. I think having that scan put the design team in another direction when it went to go build a starship. So that I can wrap my head around on why the Enterprise was so radically different looking in the JJ verse.
Well,
Make sense?
it does. But do you want to know why JJ did what he did and the writers?
Oh, I'm getting some juicy stuff here. Okay.
Because there's a legal issue, and this is all real world
Oh,
production into what I'm telling you. So I'm not you fans of Star Trek out there that are watching this, don't be mad at me or whatever. But you've got to understand that these are enterprises for the business of making money, and it's saddened. But the case of Star Trek has two separate contracts: one for its television
okay.
brand
That I'm aware of. Yep. And
and
the other
one
for the movie.
film. They have very specific rules and very specific requirements for each, which is why about 5 years ago, Paramount CBS went out and after the fans and said you can no longer do fan work that anything is more than 50% related or looks like Star Trek anymore, and it kind of shut down a lot of wonderful productions. But the bottom line is it's the legal department, it's the two separate contracts that created that drama, because basically the fans, you ready for this, were making better product than its owners. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
An example of that is on the movie side, they couldn't do another Star Trek movie unless it was, I think the percentage was 60% different from the Next Generation and Kirk movies. So
Oh, okay.
how do they do that? They create the concept of a timeline shift, like Back to the Future. We find one reason for to change and alter the timeline, and we can do anything we want because it's no longer
Okay.
associated with the original, the Kirk, Spock, and the Next Generation kind of thing. feature film.
Now, from a financial point of view, I can see that and I can understand that.
And well, that allows them to redesign the ship.
Yep, I can see that.
Everything.
But if you don't mind, I'm still going to keep my head canon about this scam. But actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it was for legal and financial reasons that JJ did what he did. Now
that makes a lot of sense.
I'm of the school. I enjoyed it. I mean, I got a little tired of lens flares every 5 seconds, but
that's for sure.
But I thought it was great cast. I thought it was wonderful story.
Casting was amazing.
I thought bringing Leonard Nimoy on was amazing.
It was.
That solidified it for me. Leonard blessed it. Leonard was in it. Leonard was good, and the movie was worth it. Now the sequels, different story.
What's his name? The actor. I see his face. He's a really good actor. I like him a lot. Who did Bones?
Carl Urban.
Carl Urban. Another wonderful man. If you ever have a chance to meet him at a convention, really nice man. Really down to earth person. When he was on the shuttle with Chris Pine, and he sat down and he's taking a nip out of the flask, and he goes, "My wife got everything, including the whole damn planet divorce. All she left me was my bones." I cried. That is like, oh my God, he nailed.
And I loved the relationship with Zoe and Zach in terms of the Uhura and Spock thing. It made sense to me because of the two people on the ship. I mean, of all the people on the ship, to me, they're the most intelligent. I think
they were supposed to touch on that in the original series. They were supposed to touch on that, but they never got around to it.
They did a little
bit, yeah, but they didn't follow through on the thing. So it was not. And Zoe Saldana and Zanella, all of those actors on there, and God rest his soul,
Anton,
Anton, Chekhov. It just, they really did it. The only thing I had a little problem with is that Sulu, when they had the part where they're all drunk and he took out a rapier. And he went to go fight in the original series. And so he had the rapier because originally they wanted him with the samurai sword. And he was like, I don't want to look stereotyped. So they go, okay, you have the rapier defense. So what did they do when they're in the JJ first? They gave him a samurai sword.
Yeah, that didn't bother me a lot. But I think keeping the energy and the comedy is what made the JJ verse.
It did.
Better.
It did. It made it watchable. I had little points that I was upset with,
right.
But again, I had to learn, like from Independence Day, I had to turn my brain off. Like when Spock was like, "Yo, Khan, Vulcans aren't supposed to show real strong emotion," and for him to scream and go Khan, that bothered me. And then for Khan now to have magic blood, that was like.
See, I disagree. I thought that you got to realize when Leonard was playing it, Leonard was playing less emotions, not no emotions.
Right.
So Vulcans have emotions. So it would take a traumatic experience for a Vulcan who's half human, don't forget, to get a really good reason to have an outburst. So being half human and being that super traumatic event of his best friend dying in front of him, literally, it made total sense to me. It took me a while to get used to the reversing. You know, Kirk died instead of Spock. But I was okay with that once I got over it.
I'm gonna have to watch it again to get your viewpoint on that, because I remember that being a bone of contention for me, and then them saying that Khan's blood can like bring the dead back. I had issues with that as well.
Well, that's one of those science things that you have to go with in terms of it makes sense because that's what he was involved with inventing. Khan was trying to make extended life, extended strength, intelligence, and all that stuff. So that's what he was doing. So that didn't bother me.
Now, you know what I would think that would be a really good pickup for later on? That you find out that they're using his blood and they're basically tapping him like a keg. And Starfleet's got this underground people. They're making super soldiers with Khan's blood.
Well, there's that what's it called? Department 33 or Area
30? Oh yeah, Section 31.
Section 30, whatever.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
They could
and they're not filming that. Actually they put that on hold until they finish with Strange New Worlds. Well, and I'm looking forward to Strange New Worlds.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute, but I want to finish with the JJ verse because I think the energy that they put into those is really great. And the fourth film that they were supposed to make was supposed to be about Kirk's father. Chris Hemsworth was
Yep.
coming back. And then
Yep.
now the latest Trek is they've dumped the two that were supposed to be with Quentin Tarantino, and I forget the other one. There's a
Yep.
woman, there's a woman who's opting a script involving
I heard about that one.
involving something to do with what was the storyline? It's not Kirk's father anymore. Somebody else was coming. Oh, Shatner, talking about bringing the crossover of the original series Kirk, like Spock was, into this universe to solve some sort of disaster. So that's the latest. But that can't be made until that contract with Bad Robot is either up or renewed, and they let whoever produce it. So it could be a while before we see that.
I hope when they do,
Let,
that they really do a good job with it, because I would love for Star Trek to pick back up and to do well when it comes to the movies and the show. Quentin Tarantino's, I would be cautiously optimistic because he's a fan, but I would just have to be cautiously optimistic on how he would do it. And if it would involve the Chris Pine and all of them would be back on board. So
maybe we don't know. It's taking so long.
But it's with money involved too, you know.
Well, it's not so much money. It's who's in charge of producing it and who's got the script. You can't bring
that's true.
You can't bring anybody on board if nobody wants to do it because they read it and go, "This is crap," so to speak. So
as long as they don't try to retool and get different actors all over again, because I really think they knocked it out of the park with the casting they have.
Right, and the other thing is too. Do you remember? You know Simon Pegg, who played Scotty?
Oh yeah, great job.
Well, in the third movie, he wrote the story. He wrote the screenplay.
I thought the story was great, but I don't know why people didn't like it.
Story was good and fun, but it wasn't engaging. It didn't grab you, from my opinion. Okay, let's switch to the what's called the Alex Kurtzman Star Trek, which is the TV side, which is a completely separate entity. Right now, Alex Kurtzman is getting all kinds of flack from the higher ups over at Paramount and CBS Access was supposed to be this Disney Plus kind of thing. It bombed. What do they do? This year, starting January 1st, they rebranded. Oh no, February 1st, they rebranded CBS as Paramount Plus because CBS just basically mishandled it. As a result, I think they're almost done with that second season of Lower Decks, and they haven't ordered any more. And they're finishing up, I think, the fourth season of Discovery. Haven't ordered any more. And I think they're starting production on Picard. Again, haven't ordered any more. So right now, Alex Kurtzman is on I don't know if they're going to renew him or find somebody else to do Star Trek, because all of the Star Trek products, including Picard, did not hit the mark for CBS. Now with the rebranding, they're hoping they're going to do the publicizing and all that and get the. What they didn't do is they focused on, in my opinion, they focused on not the fandom part or what made Star Trek special, but like you said earlier, the explosions and what young people want. And they need producers or showrunners that make the show last beyond its time. Meaning the only way that's going to happen is through writing and the casting. No matter how many special spores or flares or explosions you have, no one's going to watch it the first time, and definitely no one's going to come back to watch it if they did watch it the first time. And you don't have that problem with the original series. Your podcast is a perfect example. You're rewatching Enterprise, which you can do. You can go back to the stories and find good ones. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Discovery. It fell way off the mark for me. The Orville, created by Seth MacFarlane, is more Star Trek than Discovery to me.
Well, because Seth was a huge Star Trek fan. So he's doing the Star Trek that you and I grew up watching. But he wanted to do that.
Wrong. He's not doing the Star Trek that you and I are watching.
Well, it inspired. Let me rephrase that.
No. He's doing the Star Trek that was based on character-driven stories that had something to say. It wasn't. He couldn't do Star Trek because Paramount would sue him.
No, I meant you took what I was thinking and you said it, and even though I didn't say it correctly. But yes, because a lot of the Orville stuff, like for instance, when she was down on the planet and the planet was in like a phase, every time they came back, 100 years passed, and you find one phrase, they turn into a religion. That was a really good thing about Bortus when his child, when they wanted to change from female to male.
And
Really good story.
one of my favorites is first season. Did you see the one where in our today's society, like, don't like?
Oh yeah, that whole thing. That was, yeah, that was another really good episode. And
And
then you had the one with the AI when it came to, that was like, I don't love you anymore.
but
It's like,
here's the point. What Seth is doing, he's making stories that are in the future, and maybe not viable in the real science world, but they're plausible because they're situations that people can deal with and relate to, but in the future.
but see, and again, that's what we talked about earlier. The sci-fi happens to be a background.
Right.
It's not the main thing. It's the
Discovery,
people.
Discovery, Discovery, Lower Decks, Picard, little less. They don't hit that mark. They're not telling stories. I don't care about Michael Berman at all. If you destroyed her character, I think the show would be better. If you put Michelle Yeoh's character or Jason Isaac's character, which I thought they were going to with Jason Isaac, and I like that, but they totally went wrong to
Well,
me.
this we're gonna have to see, because everything that you are desiring to see, I think they're gonna do with Strange Worlds, Strange New Worlds.
Well, here's the thing about Strange Worlds. Alex Kurtzman is the one who, I guess, was put on the back burner, and I forget the new producer's name. He just got on with Paramount, but they're allowing this other guy, which I can't remember, to run that show, and supposedly he's going to go back to, let's keep these stories character driven and real versus all
Well,
that.
they're gonna have to do that because you get Ensign Mount when he did Hell on Wheels. Oh my God, that made me such a huge fan of his. If you have a chance to see, it's a Western.
Let's in closing, because we've talked a lot today, and this is so informative, and you're obviously a huge Star Trek fan, and it's nice to talk to somebody who has like opinions and different opinions, and shares. I had no idea you liked the same episodes I did, so that's even cooler. So, and if you're a geek like me, it's like, oh my God, a fellow geek. Anyway, uh, so in closing, what would you tell the people that have, say, never seen any of the Star Treks? Um, One, why should they watch it? What's a good reason to watch it? And two, where would they start? 65, almost 60 plus years of thousands of hours of entertainment. Where do they start?
Mm.
Do you want some
I
oxygen?
think I think that in order for someone to really get a feel, they should go OG first and watch the original series to get a foundation of it, and then I would jump from there. Um, well, they got to understand why Cisco punched out Picard right off the bat when he first met him. So you got to see a little bit from the Next Generation, and then from there I would jump into maybe season into DS9, and then from DS9 I would go into the Enterprise to see how the whole thing started, and then go from there. And all the other ones, it's a dealer's choice.
So you didn't say Voyager though.
Voyager. Oh yeah, but Voyager. Okay, all right. Rewind. So it would be the original series, TNG, Voyager, then DS9, and then dealer's choice.
Okay. How about feature films? There's like 18 to choose from.
Of course, you have to go with Voyage Home and Wrath of Khan. I think are one of the absolute best ones there is. If you want a movie that's going to give you some comedy as well as some excitement, would definitely be the Voyage Home with the whales and
That's
everything.
Wrath of Khan
It
is.
is,
That's my favorite.
and And so it is. And Ricardo Montalban. And
Oh,
for those of you who haven't seen it, when you do see it, yes, that is his real chest. It is not a prosthesis or anything. Again, the guy was actually really built like that.
yeah, and I interviewed who directed that? Nicholas Meyer. And I said, so of all the, you've been obviously been recognized for Star Trek, Wrath of Khan. He's done all kinds of things time after time, blah, blah, blah. He says, what is the most asked question of you? And he goes, literally said to me, he goes, looks me in the eye, he goes, you know what? Ironically, it's not about me. I think I've been asked the most times ever about, is that really Ricardo Montalban's chest?
Yep, and it was. It is.
And he always says he worked out before and after and during.
I believe it.
That was
And a little bit of trivia, you may or may not know this, but a lot of his followers, Khan's followers, were Chippendale dancers. They
okay.
were Chippendale. They hired Chippendale dancers because they wanted people to look body beautiful and perfect to be part of Khan's good men.
Now, and
So
I wasn't a big fan of all the Next Generation movies. I did love First Contact. I think Jonathan Frakes
First Contact did a
knocked
good
that out
job.
of the park. He was amazing.
Well,
Uh,
Jonathan Frakes to me has really elevated his stature as I'll direct him with somebody thumbing through a phone book. He's done a really good job. I think has done an excellent job as being a director. Almost every episode that he's touched as a director, I've kind of liked along the line. So
yeah, I would say on the small screen, but on the big screen, he's had a couple misses. Like I believe he directed Insurrection, which I didn't like that much. Um, but yeah, he did do an excellent job with First Contact, and
now I heard with Insurrection, what he wanted to do, they stopped him from doing. He wanted Q to be a part of it.
it's very political in the multi-million dollar movie industry.
Yeah, he wanted to do it.
It's a lot different.
It
Okay,
was.
okay. So, any closing final words you want to tell our viewers here? What?
Yes, there's one thing I want to be able to say. First off, from always, thank you for joining the Geek Authority, and make sure you hit that subscribe and follow button. And also, just don't have a great week, but make it so.
Ooh, I just got a shiver. Anyway,
Yeah.
listen, Nathan, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Was an amazing interview. I can't believe all the subjects we talked about and how we covered everything. I don't think we left anything out. So
No, we covered all the things.
and more and more.
Yes, we did.
So, like he said, if you haven't already subscribed, somewhere on the screen is a button. Please subscribe. It helps the channel and so on and so forth. There's a little bell. You push that button or ring that bell. Every time I drop something, you'll get an email. You can watch it whenever you have the time or at your convenience. Real quick, let me go a couple of my shows that I do. This is, of course, the Geek Authority show. I also have the Geek Authority's Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles. I collect things. If you like toys and phasers and all that other stuff, you might want to tune into that. I have an Unboxing the Geek Authority, which is where I open up stuff that I get for the first time from companies or whatever. You see it, I see it for the first time. It's my reaction is pretty real. I have the Geek Authority's reviews, opinions, and commentary. That's where I talk about things that I like, things that I don't like, things that are changing or in the industry, and so on and so forth. I have the Geek Authority's Talk About show, where I gather family and friends and we talk about new stuff like Cobra Kai, the new series, or old stuff. We did a show on Space 1999 with Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, as well as our reminiscing of Disneyland and California Adventure. That was a really emotional show. Last show I have is called Making Entertainment, the Geek Authority. And what it is, we go behind the scenes of productions that are gearing up or getting ready to be done either on Zoom, on stage, or independent film productions. And you get to see and hear how that is done, how projects are made. So once again, Nathan, I want to thank you so much for joining me. You are a wonderful person. I love you dearly.
Thank you.
I love seeing you at conventions, and you're always great to talk to. And like I said, his information will be below if you want to check out the podcast and sites. And if you got a question or whatever, you can either write me or write him directly, and one of us will respond, or I'll forward it to him. And pretty much that's it. So,
Oh, hold on, Ambassador. Did you like the show? Did you watch?
okay. Ambassador?
Yeah, he's from an aquatic planet. He stopped by to visit, so he was listening to the show. He just gave his nod. He said he's going to subscribe.
How is he breathing?
But yeah, he just agreed.
How is he breathing?
Uh, we have misters.
Oh, I want to make sure he's okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
thank you.
all right, thanks for watching, and of course, live long and prosper,
Peace and long life.
and we will see you next time. Bye bye.